And these craft have interfered with military exercises, as we all know from, say, the Nimitz and the Gimbal and the Go Fast videos that, made it out into the public in 2017. So it's really out there now at this point that there's a reality here, and so that's where we are at this point.
Well, one of the more spectacular ones you talked about, the Nimitz, the Commander David Fravor experience. So they're flying over the water outside of San Diego, and they think they see something below the surface, and which is large, and then this 20-foot tic-tac looking thing that's hovering over the water that seems to turn towards them and recognize that they're it jams their radar. It does something to block their ability to detect it. They have it on screen. They have video of this thing. There's eyewitnesses of this thing. They track it on radar going from above 50,000 feet down to sea level in a second. They don't know what it is. It takes off at an insane rate of speed. It goes to the cat point where they were supposed to meet up. So they have all this data about this thing that behaves in a way that's impossible with our current understanding of propulsion systems.
Right. And, of course, in the program, we interviewed the pilots about their experiences and so on. And so you can't blame a pilot. He says, look, this thing was at 80,000 feet or whatever when he first detected it. Suddenly it's down there right above the water, and then it takes off and does a right angle turn at Mach 3. This stuff is just way beyond our physics. Of course, to a physics nerd like me, so now wait a minute. If it's real, it's physics. So
right,
it can't be beyond our physics.
It's beyond our understanding.
But it's beyond our engineering. So in fact, in that series of papers I showed you, that of the 38 papers, by the way, there's a little side story there. It's interesting. And those 38 papers were then posted. None of these people who generated those papers had any idea it had to do with ETs or UFOs or whatever. They all went up on what's called the JWIC server. It's a classified server for the Pentagon, and intelligence officers and aerospace contractors, could get access, but nobody in the public could. And usually those things go up, and they're up for, a little while, and a month or so, and they take them down. This was such a popular set, this 38 papers, such a popular set, that everybody screamed every time they tried to take it down. And so it was posted there, like forever. But eventually, through Freedom of Information Act and so on, most of those papers have been released. And I was concerned that, oh, my God, these guys are all going to call me up and say, what? You didn't tell me this had anything to do with ETs or UFOs? But actually, nobody seemed to not complain about it. So back to the question that you mentioned a little earlier, though, about, what's the source of this? Like I said, it's an embarrassment of riches. There's so much observation. The idea that it may be a scout coming by from some other planet and checking us out and heading off or whatever. I mean, there's much more than that. And, of course, as you know from interviewing Jacques Vallée, he dug into the literature and found out, you can go back millennia and see descriptions of exactly what we're talking about today. So as far as where they come from or what they're doing here, I myself have written a paper called Ultraterrestrials, where I try to cover the gamut. And I cover everything. Yeah, they could be spacecraft from some other galaxy whipping through here. Or maybe there's some Atlanteans left over from eons ago, and they're just kind of hiding out in the seabed or on some mountain range someplace. Or maybe some ET group showed up here 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and they're hiding out with some bases locally and so on. And, of course, we have a fellow by the name of, a professor by the name of Masters who thinks that, well, maybe it's time travelers from the future coming back. And then there's the whole idea, since physicists like to talk about additional dimensions, maybe they come from another. So anyway, then in my ultra-terrestrials paper, I list everyone I can think of and say, we should be exploring all of these. So at this point, I would say we know it's NHI, non-human intelligence, but it's not clear what the source is. Maybe at a higher level of classification than I had access to, and maybe it's known. But right now, I'd say we don't.
Do you have a
really
suspicion?
I guess my suspicion that it's likely non-human intelligence from some other galaxy or far out in our own galaxy that have come here but some time back, and that there are stations here. One of our remote viewers that was really good came up one day and said, I was looking around and I think I found a UFO base on Earth. This is during the remote viewing era, and oh my God, I've got to report this to my CIA contract monitor. And do I want to tell him that? And so I did, and one of the places he came up with some, but one of the places he came up with was Mount Zeal in Australia. And so my CIA contract monitor says, well, I know the station keeper, CIA station keeper out in Australia. I think I'll call him, and I won't tell him why I'm asking, but I'll ask him about Mount Zeal area. So he gave him a call, and he said, I'd like to ask you about that Mount Zeal area. He says, oh, you mean where the UFOs are always flying around?
Whoa.
So I thought, oh,